Okay, let's do it like this. Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome to Storytime with Srta Pikula. It is Friday. Happy Friday, everyone. And thanks for oh yeah, everything's not working. Okay. Thanks for joining. Uh today's a good day to be here. And yeah, today I'm going to give another shout out, which is so strange to me still to do that. I'm going to just give a shout out to my student Addie, who every time I talk to her, she just makes me smile and laugh every day. She's such a spunky, fun girl. So shout out to Addie. And I'm going to do another shout out. I'm going to do a shout out to my mom and my dad. And my sisters, my two sisters, the other senior or Miss Pikula's out there, because they watch us too. And that's really funny to me, and I like the support. So shout out to my family. All right, we're going to continue with Prince Caspian, and so as we were reading last time, we saw that or heard Caspian hit his head, and all of a sudden he woke up in this cave, and he was kind of groggy, and he heard three voices talking, and the voices were um, saying things like, "Oh well, what should we do with it? Oh well, we should kill it," said one of them. Another one said, "Well, no, that'd be terrible. That'd be like murdering a guest." And they were having this argument over what to do with Caspian, and Caspian was just like, "Oh please, whatever you do, be kind to my horse." And anyway, so we met three new characters. We had one, his name was Truffle Hunter, which is a very funny name, Truffle Hunter, and he was a badger, and he was a very large badger, and he seemed to be kind and caring and wise. And then we had Nickabrick, and Nickabrick was a black dwarf. He had black hair and beard, and he was really wild looking. He was a full dwarf, not like Dr. Cornelius. And he didn't like Caspian. He was very not okay with the idea of keeping him there. And he's like, there's going to be trouble if we keep him around. And then there was Drumpkin. Drumpkin was a red dwarf, so red ginger, red hair, red beard. And he he was kind of indifferent. Like, okay, maybe we should keep him, but Neckerbrick, you're kind of too extreme. And then they kept him. They took care of him, and they're convinced that he should be the real king of Narnia because he's a son of Adam. He's a man. So then they were going to go and round up all the animals and creatures to have a council. We met some other creatures. We met the three bulgy bears, and we also met the squirrel. What was the squirrel's name? Attertwig. All right, so we're going to continue with Chapter 6, The People That Lived in Hiding. These are the old Narnians. Truffle Hunter and the dwarves thought this a very good idea and gave Pattertwig messages to all sorts of people with strange names, telling them all to come to a feast and council on Dancing Lawn at midnight 3 nights ahead. And you'd better tell the three Bulgies too, added Trumpkin. We forgot to mention it to them. Their next visit was to the 7 brothers of Shuddering Wood. Trumpkin led the way back to the saddle and then sat down eastward on the northern slope of the mountains till they came to a very solemn place among rocks and fir trees. They went very quietly, and presently Caspian could feel the ground shake under his feet as if someone were hammering down below. Trumpkin went to a flat stone about the size of the top of a wall beneath, and there was a dark round hole with a good deal of heat and steam coming out of it, and in the middle of the hole was the head of a dwarf, very like Trumpkin himself. There was a long talk here, and the dwarf seemed more suspicious than the squirrel or the bulgy berries had been. But in the end, the whole party were invited to calm down. Caspian himself found himself descending a dark stairway into the earth. But when he came to the bottom, he saw a firelight. It was the light of a furnace. The whole place was a smithy. A subterranean stream ran past on one side of it. Two dwarves were at the bellows. Another was holding a piece of red hot metal on the anvil with a pair of tongs. A fourth was hammering it, and two, wiping their horny little hands on a greasy cloth, were coming forward to meet the visitors. It took some time to satisfy them that Caspian was a friend and not an enemy. But when they did, they all cried, "Long live the king!" And their gifts were noble mail shirts and helmets and swords for Caspian and Trumpkin and Knickerbrick. The badger could have had the same if he had liked, but he said that he was a beast, he was, and if his claws and teeth could not keep his skin whole, it wasn't worth keeping. The workmanship of the arms was far finer than any Caspian had ever seen, and he gladly accepted the dwarf made sword instead of his own, which looked, in comparison, as feeble as a toy and clumsy as a stick. The seven brothers, who were all red dwarfs, promised to come to the feast of Dancing Lawn. A little farther on, in a dry, rocky ravine, they reached the cave of five black dwarfs. They looked suspiciously at Caspian, but in the end, the eldest of them said, "If he is against Miraz, we'll have him for a king." And the next oldest said, "Shall we go farther up for you, up to the crags? There's an ogre or two and a hag we could introduce to you up there." "Certainly not," said Caspian. "I should think not indeed," said Truffle Hunter. "I want none of that sort on our side." Knickerbrick disagreed with this, but Trumpkin and the Badger overruled him. It gave Caspian a shock to realize that the horrible creatures out of the old stories, as well as the nice ones, had some descendants in Narnia still. "We should not have Aslan for a friend if we brought in that rubble," said Truffle Hunter as they came away from the cave of the Black Dwarfs. "Oh, Aslan," said Trumpkin cheerily but contemptuously. What matters much more is that you wouldn't have me." "Do you believe in Aslan?" said Caspian to Knickerbrick. "I'll believe in anyone or anything," said Knickerbrick, "that'll batter these cursed towering barbarians to pieces or drive them out of Narnia. Anyone or anything. Aslan or the White Witch. Do you understand?" "Silence! Silence!" said Truffle Hunter. You do not know what you are saying. She is a worse enemy than Miraz and all his race." "Not to dwarfs, she wasn't," said Knickerbrick. Their next visit was a pleasanter one. As they came lower down, the mountains opened out into a great glen or wooded gorge with a swift river running at the bottom. The open places near the river's edge were a mass of foxgloves and wild roses, and the air was buzzing with bees. Here, Truffle Hunter called again, "Glenstorm! Glenstorm!" And after a pause, Caspian heard the sound of hoofs. It grew louder till the valley trembled, and at last, breaking and trampling the thickets, there came in sight the noblest creatures that Caspian had yet seen, the great centaur Glenstorm and his three sons. His flanks were glossy chestnut, and the beard that covered his broad chest was golden red. He was a prophet and a stargazer, and knew what they had come about. "Long live the king!" he cried. "I and my sons are ready for war. When is the battle to be joined?" Up till now, neither Caspian nor the others had really been thinking of a war. They had some vague idea, perhaps, of an occasional raid on some human farmstead or attacking a party of hunters, but if it ventured too far into these southern wilds. But in the main, they had thought only of living to themselves in woods and caves and building up an attempt at old Narnia and hiding. As soon as Glenstrom had spoken, everyone felt much more serious and solemn. "Do you mean A real war to drive Maras out of Narnia? Said Caspian. What else? Said the centaur. Why does your majesty go clad in mail and girt with sword? Is it possible, Glenstorm? Said the badger. The time is right, said Glenstorm. I watch the skies, badger, for it is mine to watch, as it is yours to remember. Tarva and Alambel, the stars have met in the halls of high heaven, and on earth the son of Adam has once more arisen to rule and name the creatures. The hour has struck. Our council at the dancing lawn must be a council of war. He spoke in such a voice that neither Caspian nor the others hesitated for a moment. It now seemed to them quite possible that they might win a war, and quite certain that they must wage one. As it was now the middle of past the middle of the day, they rested with the centaurs and ate such food as the centaurs provided: cakes of oaten meal, and apples and herbs and wine and cheese. The next place they were to visit was quite near at hand, but they had to go a long way round in order to avoid a region in which men lived. It was well into the afternoon before they found themselves on level fields, warm between hedgerows. There, Truffle Hunter called at the mouth of a little hole in a green bank, and out popped the last thing Caspian expected to see: a talking mouse. He was, of course, bigger than a common mouse, well over a foot high when he stood on his hind legs, and with ears nearly as long, though broader than, a rabbit's. His name was Reepicheep, and he was a happy and martial mouse. He wore a tiny little rapier sword at his side and twirled his long whiskers as if they were a mustache. There are 12 of us, sire, he said with a dashing and graceful bow, and I place all the resources of my people unreservedly at your majesty's disposal. Caspian tried hard and unsuccessfully not to laugh, but he couldn't help thinking that Reepicheep and all his people could very easily be put in a washing basket and carried home on one's back. It would take too long to mention all the creatures whom Caspian met that day: Codsley Shovel the mole, the three hardbiters, who were badgers like Truffle Hunter, Amijo the hare, and Hogglestock the hedgehog. They rested at last beside a well at the edge of a wide and level circle of grass, bordered with tall elms, which now threw long shadows across it, for the sun was setting, the daisies closing, and the rooks flying home to bed. But here they supped on food they had brought with them, and Trumpkin lit his pipe. Knickerbrick was not a smoker. Now, said the badger, if only we could wake the spirits of these trees and this well, we should have done a good day's work. Can't we? Said Caspian. No, said Truffle Hunter. We have no power over them. Since the humans came into the land, felling forests and defiling streams, the dryads and naiads have sunk into a deep sleep. Who knows if they'll ever stir again? And that is a great loss to our side. The Telmarines are horribly afraid of the woods, and once the trees move in anger, our enemies would go mad with fright and be chased out of Narnia as quick as their legs could carry them. What imaginations you animals have, said Trumpkin, who didn't believe in such things. But why stop the trees and waters? Wouldn't it be even nicer if the stones started throwing themselves at old Miraz? The badger only grunted at this. And after that, there was such a silence that Caspian had nearly dropped off to sleep when he thought he heard a faint musical sound from the depth of the woods at his back. Then he thought it was only a dream and turned over again. But as soon as his ear touched the ground, he felt or heard, it was hard to tell which, a faint beating or drumming. He raised his head. The beating noise once became fainter, but the music returned, clearer this time. It was like flutes. He saw that Truffle Hunter was sitting up and staring into the wood. The moon was bright. Caspian had been asleep longer than he thought. Nearer and nearer came the music, a tune wild yet dreamy, and the noise of many light feet, till at last, from out from the wood into the moonlight, came dancing shapes such as Caspian had been thinking of all his life. They were not much taller than dwarves, but far slighter and more graceful. Their curly heads had little horns. The upper part of their bodies gleamed naked in the pale light, but their legs and feet were those of goats. Fawns! Cried Caspian, jumping up, and in a moment they were all around him. It took next to no time to explain the whole situation to them, and they accepted Caspian at once. Before he knew what he was doing, he found himself joining in the dance. Trunken, with heavier and jerkier movements, did likewise, and even Truffle Hunter hopped and lumbered about as best as he could. Only Nickabrick stayed where he was, looking on in the silence. The fawns footed it all around Caspian to their reedy pipes. Their strange faces, which seemed mournful and merry all at once, looked into his. Dozens of fawns, Mentius and Obentinus, and Dumbness, Volnus, Voltinus, Euribus, they have hard names, Nemianus, Nasus, and Oscanus. Oskans. Petritwig had sent them all. When Caspian awoke next morning, he could hardly believe that it had not all been a dream, but the grass was covered with little hoof marks. And that's the end of the chapter, and we're going to stop there. Chapter 7 is the next chapter, and it's called Old Narnia in Danger. So, this has been fun. I want to let you know I miss all of you very dearly, and I hope that all of you are doing well and that your families are doing well. And we'll continue with story time on Monday, same time, 12 noon. If you haven't done so yet, click subscribe below. And I hope that you all have a fantastic weekend and stay safe and healthy. And I'll see you next time.